Hi, I'm going to share with you in just a few minutes what it took me over 10 years to understand about how public schools are funded in Fairfax County and Virginia. So Fairfax County, the largest county in Virginia, is using local real estate taxes as the main source for funding our public schools. So if you own a home, you know this, you pay real estate tax. Now, the school board does not have any power or authority to generate the money. In other states that happens, but in Virginia, it is a different board. It's called the Board of Supervisors. And those are the elected individuals who decide how much revenue will be collected and how much will be transferred over to the school board. So you might hear a lot about the transfer of funds. So once the school board receives the money, then we are able to allocate it with information from the superintendent on what our students in schools need. So Fairfax has a long history dating back to the Lord Fairfax days. And so there are actually political subdivisions called magisterial districts, like from Her Majesty. There are 9 of those. I represent the Hunter Mill district, which is generally Vienna, Reston, little bits of Oakton, little bits of Herndon. But there are 8 others, right? So 9 total. So on the school board, 9 of us represent each of those magisterial districts. On the County Board of Supervisors, there are also representatives for each magisterial district. So I have a counterpart on the Hunter Mill Board. So we represent where people live. So no matter where a child goes to school, I represent the student if they live in Hunter Mill. And of course, I represent all residents because whether or not people have children in schools or have children at all, the taxpayers are the ones who are funding our public schools. So I am accountable to the taxpayers. So the budget for the county is developed generally from January to May, and the 2 boards have to work together to try and figure out how to best fund all the public services. But that transfer from the county board to the school board is what is the most important thing to pay attention to. Now, here's the deal. Fairfax County is paying way more than its share to fund our excellent public schools. And the issue lies with the state, the General Assembly. So that's set up like Congress is, where there is a House and a Senate. And every resident in Virginia is represented represented by a House of Delegate member and a senator. And the House of Delegate members are elected every 2 years. So it's a quick turnaround. So what happened is the General Assembly a few years ago wanted to understand how education was being funded in Virginia, and surprising to no one who works in public education here, our schools in Virginia are chronically underfunded because the formulas and calculations that the state's been using are way out of date, to the tune of $500 million owed to Fairfax to fund what the state thinks should be the standard of education. But in Fairfax, we don't want just basic and average, we want to go above average. So in Fairfax, our local taxpayers pay $1 billion more every year to fund our excellent schools. But that is not sustainable, it's not equitable. So for every dollar that Fairfax Fairfax sends to the state in taxes, like if you buy a shirt or whatever, right, you send some money down to the state, for every dollar we send to Richmond, we only get 1/4 back. In other places in the state, that is flipped. In other places, the localities are receiving 75, 80, 90% of their funding for their local schools from the state. There's a much different burden on the local community. So the bottom line is that Virginia schools and Fairfax schools have a lot of work ahead of them in terms of funding and getting the money to appropriately fund public education. So what can you do? You can show up and vote, because the people who are making these decisions are elected by you, and they're representing you, and they're going to spend your money. So you might as well tell them how to do it. And then if you can, also speak up. While it's hard to get in touch with federal electeds, you can go to a local school board meeting. You can go to a county board of supervisors meeting. You can request to meet with them. These are your local representatives. They're accessible. So please show up and speak up when you can for public education. All right, more soon. Bye.